why would we trade our kids' lives for something that has no outcome associated with it?
Hey everybody, welcome to today's Jeff Heilman Project. We're so glad that you tuned in today. We have an awesome message. You know, Jeff and I have been homeschoolers actually since, let's see, Jeffrey, happy early birthday, Jeffrey. In October, we'll be turning 29. He's the only one of our 7 children who's gone to school, and he went to school for a year, 1 year, and that was, gosh, he would have been 6, so it was a while ago. So, but we decided at a long time ago to homeschool our kids, and there was a lot that we had to, a lot of growth on our part. But beyond just homeschooling 7 kids, having 7 kids, and then overcoming the judgment of, having a big family, especially in today's day and age, has not always been easy. I can remember, Jeff, when we only had like one. And we knew we wanted to have a big family. We had a vision for a big family. And I remember telling Uncle Fred, we told Uncle Fred that we wanted to have 6 kids. And he was like, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to have a big family. And then we had 2 kids. No, you don't want to do that. And then we had 3. No. And then by the time there was like a tipping point, like once we had 4, and then we're like, I don't know, man, this is getting really hard. Then he was like, oh, come on. So it definitely has been a dichotomy where we've seen our parents think we're crazy, and then they saw us and they're like, acceptance. It's kind of like it's the grief phase. And then finally they came to the point to where they're like, you're really awesome. This is really great. The kids turned out great. So that's what we're talking about today.
So today's topic is
the
talking
emotional
about
roller coaster of parenting.
How do you get over the fear of judgment from other people with regard to how you're parenting. So we're going to do the very best we can to deliver on how do we get over the fear of judgment in parenting. And I've got a couple of ideas here. We can toss it back and forth and see how you're feeling about it. But the first thing that I would say is just what's best for the kids, right? Forget about how embarrassed you are because of the way you're raising your kids or somebody else thinks. I mean, what does that person have to do with feeding your kids, housing your kids, clothing your kids, raising your kids, encouraging your kids? I mean, chances are if they play on the same baseball team, they don't want your kid to do well anyway. They want their kid to do better so they get more playtime or what have you. So I almost treat what other people think about how I raise kids as like the evil empire. So I just think about what's best for the kids and what's best for our kids. We think we know pretty well what's best for each of our kids. We spend a lot of time with them. What's best for other people's kids, I can speculate, but I would have to leave it to them. But if we think about what's best for our kids, what does that really look like? And I would ask you, how do you know what you think is best for each of your kids?
Well, it took so many years to figure out a good rhythm for schooling and like just raising the kids. Thankfully, when I was in college, I was studying childhood development and really took it upon myself to learn a lot about psychology and sociology. It did really impress upon me that in a big family, especially, that each child is different. Like each child, you cannot take, I used to say all the time, because the kids would be like, somebody would get invited to a birthday party and somebody wouldn't, and you got a big family. And I'd say, it's not about what's fair, it's about what's good for the team. And having that picture of recognizing that, Andrew's going to have different needs than Jeffrey, and Jeffrey's going to have different needs than Joseph, and they're not all going to get the same Christmas budget. They're not all going to get the same Christmas toys. They're not all going to get the same, but for them and their personality. And so it's so much more listening than talking. And it's so much more watching and observing than it is being the one to always be in front and always be leading and like leaving these sweet little children in your dust. Like it becomes, even as they get older, a hand to hand, elbow to elbow team work.
I found that there's a famous quote, and we'll get the quote. I think it's Thoreau, but I think the quote is this: "We are what we repeatedly do." Mm-hmm. Well, kids are what they repeatedly do, and I think that if you focus on watching, like you were saying earlier, like listening and seeing, what are they doing a lot of? Like Joseph tumbled and would always be bouncing
Oh
around,
my
standing
gosh,
on his
the
head.
boy was up. The
So
boy was
when we look
standing
at
on his
tumbling,
head.
what does that look like? You can run away and join the circus. We can get him in gymnastics, or we could get him into diving. And so he ended up
Yeah.
doing springboard diving because we are what we repeatedly do, because that's who we are. It's what we're interested in. And so when Joseph started tumbling a lot, he said, hey, let me try this thing with diving. And it worked.
Well,
And he
from
did
a-
it for like 10 years.
And this is not a Christian podcast or necessarily a biblical podcast, but it is the Bible has so many principles that when I was working this out to try to figure out how to parent the children responsibly, I found it curious that the Bible doesn't mention Jesus at all between the ages of 0 and 12. The first time we hear about Jesus, other than being born in the manger, is he's 12 years old and he's in the temple and he's like teaching. And so one has to be left like, well, what did he do between the ages of like 1 and 12? And so you have
Played
to
Mario Kart.
correct, like kind of really impressed upon me that I believe, and after reading all these books on sociology and psychology and childhood development, that if you allow a child to organically grow between the ages of 0 and 12, that by the time that they're 12 will be exhibiting certain personalities, certain strengths, certain things that they're naturally gravitate toward if you allow them to just grow in an organic environment and give them the room to begin to show so-and-so is a really good reader, or so-and-so is a really good painter, or so-and-so is a really good artist, or so-and-so is really mechanically inclined. And so being able to take that into the childhood experience and have them be able to be turned 12, and like every night Teddy prays for good dreams and he prays for his dreams coming true. And when I ask him, okay, Teddy, like what's your dream then to come true? And right now, currently at least, his dream is to be an animator and to make money, to be able to make money in animation and illustration at 12. And it was the same with Jeffrey. By the time he was 15, he wanted to be, a baker, and he wanted to be in the restaurant environment. And he, each one of our children, by the time they're about 15, has said, no, I know what I want to be when I grow up. I know what I want to do, at least have these components, Andrew, with filmmaking and producing, because I believe that we allowed them to have the opportunity to be free to find out who they are and their individual voices. But that does come with judgment, like the intro to what we began this podcast with. How does society view people who allow a 12-year-old to say, I know what I want to be when I grow up, especially when traditionally you're not supposed to know what you want to be until you're, 24 and you've got a general education and you've tried every little thing. And well, how is it okay to have such clarity and such focus at such a young age? How do you feel about that objection?
Well, I think that you need to figure out what the criteria is for a successful life. When you buy a house, you have a criteria. I want a 3x2 in this neighborhood. When you have a car, you want a Mercedes or you want a Ford. This many miles, this amount of cost. Anytime you trade your resources, time, energy, money for something, you have an outcome associated with it. When you don't have an outcome, you get whatever you get. Well, why would we trade our kids' lives for something that has no outcome associated with it? Somebody'd say, well, of course we know what the outcome is for getting into a great grade school, which is that we want to get them into a great high school. And then the outcome from getting them into great high school is to get them into a great college. And the outcome from getting them into great college is to get them a great job. And then the outcome from them getting a great job is for them to be happy. Well, why don't we just have the outcome for them to be happy?
Yeah.
Right? Why not just, why waste time with all the rest of the nonsense?
Cut out the middleman.
Cut out the middleman and go straight to happy, right?
Get straight, pass go, collect $200.
In order for kids to be happy, I think, number one, they have to be aligned to what they like doing. And number two, they need to have some basic skills. So we came up with some basic skills that we wanted our kids to be able to have. Number one, we wanted to be able to communicate with other people.
Read is important.
Be able to read. Math, like just basic double entry accounting so they can keep track of the books on the businesses that they run. Nothing complicated, no quantitative analysis, no calculus, just basic double entry accounting in a simple ledger, which you could teach a 5-year-old through the game cash flow. Math, reading, communication, leadership, and mental toughness. And so we came up with those criteria. That's our 5-bedroom, 3-bath house. Or in our case, 7-bedroom, 5-bath house, right? When we went to the public schools, we're like, all right, does the public schools teach digital and social media marketing and communication for influence and public speaking? No, not really. They could do speech writing, but can they actually do a keynote speech and charge $15,000 or $20,000 for it? No. Okay, well, then that doesn't help us. What about double entry accounting? Can you learn that from You've been in school for 12 years. Did you learn double entry accounting that you could teach a 5-year-old in a board game in an hour? Nope. They didn't have that. All right. What about reading for the purpose of understanding political and emotional and humanities? Maybe you get that in college, but between 0 and 18, you typically don't. So that kind of disqualifies school as being able to support the criteria. Leadership, no, you're not told to get other people to stand in a line. You're told to stand in a line. You're not there to get other people to respond to a bell. You're supposed to respond to a bell. So leadership is out the window. And then the fifth one, which is mental toughness, let's just say no.
So how do you overcome, getting back to what we were originally talking about, how can you overcome, because we did get some heat initially. We got heat from our parents. Your dad, your
We
dad
still get heat.
and I'm not singling any of our parents out, but
No.
there
They
are
were
some
all
very
concerned,
educated, highly
sure.
educated members of our family who see us doing something like not imparting such a heavy impression of going to college. Like, you have to go to college. You can't live in our house unless you go to college. So how do you live in a society where seems to be so important that you're not going to advance if you don't go to college, and then be okay having to have general conversations? We hang out with some very successful people,
Yeah.
and I'm at that age to where I'm with other women my age, and she's talking about her kid at Purdue, and he's talking about his kid at Brown, and she's talking about her kid at Stanford.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, yeah, my kids are
Different path.
managers and retail establishments and working on writing books on the side.
Yeah.
How do you? It could be socially uncomfortable, and I think the answer to how you can maintain a conversation like that is, a couple podcasts ago I talked about like sizing other people up to see, is this validation seeking behavior on their part because they have to feel good because they're telling me where their kid goes to school. So then, obviously you lean into praising them. Wow, that's awesome. Your kid got into Pepperdine. How does that make you feel? Do you miss them? Like, are they looking for validation seeking behavior? Are they just trying to, that's what's on their mind, and that's what they can they probably don't have much to talk about. Like, so where does your kid go to school? So do I defer and take the lower status and just be like, yeah, my kids, or do I go the route to be like, yeah, we decided that we were going to do things differently, and
I think that goes back to how to win friends and influence people.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's trying to feel important.
Yeah.
Right. You're trying to make everybody feel important. And so if somebody's saying, well, my kid goes to Purdue, wow.
Yeah.
How is it being a parent of a Boilermaker, orange and black, right? Like, that's exciting. Plus you get to go out back east and really experience the
You get all the
four
sweaters
seasons and sweaters
yeah.
and football games, basketball games. I mean, that must be an exciting thing,
Yeah.
right? Where in there is there room to talk about ourselves, or what our philosophy is, or what our 5 criteria is that disqualified public school from being capable of raising our children?
And
for
I
us?
guess
Like,
that
it
would
doesn't.
be
It's
the
not even a
tip that
thing.
I would offer anybody who's listening to this podcast would be, if you're starting to feel uncomfortable because you can't really, talk that much, then definitely put it back on them and let them run the conversation.
I mean, that just has to do with being an adult and having an opinion on something, and
exactly.
being okay with being having disagreeable. I think we always try to do hard things.
Yeah.
Right. We were in a multi-level marketing business. You want to talk about, death warmed over? That's hard. It's hard. I'm in sales. That's hard. Most people don't want to be in sales because it's hard. I can't do anything else because I keep getting fired. This is the only thing that's left. Sales is hard. Having 7 kids is hard. Making $1 million in a year was hard, until it's not. Like, you do it until it just becomes second nature. Being 6'5", 250 pounds is hard. Playing professional golf was hard.
You choose your hard.
Yeah, it's like Jerry Seinfeld talks about. Just choose the horrible, sucky thing in your life, and at least you'll be happy while you're sucking. 3 things in order to help overcome fear of being judged with regard to parenting. First thing is, think about what's best for the kids, right? If you're doing what's right for your kids, do you really have room left to worry about being judged by what somebody thinks? And if somebody has a problem with me doing what I think's best for my kid, they have a problem, and I'm happy to help them solve that if they want to be respectful. But as far as I'm concerned, they can go jump in the lake. Second thing is, figure out what your criteria is for a successful kid. To us, it's just 5 basic things. Do they learn basic double entry accounting? Can they learn how to read and understand the political influence through literature and television? Can they communicate effectively with people as a super master communicator in text, in written form, in public speaking, and on digital and social media? Can you learn mental toughness training? Do you understand hostage negotiation and basic frame control tactics? And then leadership skills, being able to take those and help influence and pull people toward a productive outcome. So that has to do with the criteria. We didn't feel that public school taught any of those things, so we just opted out. And then the third thing is having a path forward for your children. Our job as parents is to shape our kids' view of reality and themselves and how they fit in it. And as my son Joseph quotes from Psycho-Cybernetics, people will always act in alignment with what they believe to be true about themselves and the environment that they live in. So if you shape the picture that the child has of themselves, if you shape the picture the child has of the environment and show them how they can get what they want in that environment, it gives them a path forward in order to accomplish what they're looking to do.
Parenting, no matter how you do it, whether you choose to be in a traditional school environment, homeschool, it's not easy. I think there's definitely a difference between being a parent and just being a dad or a mom, like birthing a kid and then actually raising a kid. So, whatever way that you choose to raise
Both are
your
great,
child.
by the way. If you're raising a kid that you didn't birth,
yeah,
that's
well,
a good thing.
I just
And
meant like
if
there's
you
a
had
lot
a
of
kid and
there's a lot of
gave them
people
up for
that
adoption, at least that child has life.
there's a lot of mom and dads that aren't in the picture. And so if you're choosing to be, I remember Angelique said that a long time ago. She'd be like, Jessica, the fact that you're even considering the thought of how you're raising your children, the fact that if you're watching this because the title piqued your interest or because you have actual feelings about like concern of how are we doing a good job raising our kids, then you're already doing a good job. I just want to be here to encourage anybody that's watching this that if you're asking the question, am I being a good parent? You're already being a good parent, because that's going to attract to you the tools that you need, the people that come into your life, that speak into your life, and then you're going to draw unto you what you need in order to be the best parent that you possibly can be. It brought me more comfort than anything to hear inside my own spirit, like if my kids were supposed to have other parents, better parents than me, then they would have better parents than me. I would not have been the one that the Lord chose for these kids to bring these people in. We are the right people to be raising these kids, and they're the right kids to be being raised by us. It's just working to figure it out in that delicate, hard work of sifting through the wheat and the chaff in order to get the really good gold nuggets for our children, and hope and pray that those nuggets are going to one day produce.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
And our kids are doing awesome. I mean, all of them have all really excelled in the careers that they've chosen to be in and in the direction that they're choosing. You just got back from going on a museum trip with Madeline to New York City, and the fact that at 22, like that's like her dream trip is to be with her dad, going to the Met and seeing art is not typical for a 22-year-old. But I think that that's the product of you caring and listening and leaning into and honestly getting a little uncomfortable with the cost. We don't pay for our kids to go to college, but you pay for our kids to have experiences. And those experiences have really brought them a really cool view of the world at a very young age.
We hope that today's been encouraging for you to understand a little bit about our view of what it takes to overcome the fear of judgment from other people poking their nose in your business and how you're raising your kids. We've had it for 3 decades now. We still get it. And people don't give us as much grief now because they actually get to know our kids. And sometimes they get to know our kids before they get to know us. And then they really say, wow, you have an amazing family. So we get that more often than not now. But, the first 25 years, it was pretty brutal. And even people behind our own family critical on a regular basis. So that can be difficult. But at the same time, if you have that little bit of disagreeableness that Malcolm Gladwell talks about as a key to success in Blink and in Outliers, you can absolutely sustain your path for your kids based on your values and your criteria. And if you do that, you're going to end up having no regrets, which is what we'd hope for in raising your kids. Thanks again for being with us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in.